Hi, as a prelude to the actual video series I'm starting to put together on the restoration of a third scale Taylorcraft. It's a clipped wing Taylorcraft. It's actually a Bob Nellis design kit that was probably built, I'm going to make an assumption, somewhere back in the, it's possible back in the 80s. It's powered by a Sachs 3.7 61 cc gas engine. The actual Sachs engine, I believe, was made. They started making those, at least released to the hobby industry, in the mid to late 80s. So the plane is old. It's possible that it's actually bumping on to 30 years that it's been alive and functional. The plane itself was actually bought through an estate sale of one of the club members at the club that I fly with. Charlie Marsh actually unfortunately passed away earlier in the year, and this was one of the planes that I don't know if he built or if he bought it and it was built by somebody else. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the teardown and repair and rebuild, recover, and get the plane back into flying shape again, and fly it for many years to come. It's a very nice looking plane. It's actually detailed after the Margaret Ritchie plane that actually flew to the 1966 Nationals. So anyway, climb on board and let's go for a ride. So I'll start the video series now. Okay, this is the plane. A little bit better close-up. On this side of the aircraft, there's the actual tag. Let me get it relatively straight in the camera. There's the side marking for Margaret Ritchie. That was when she actually won the national championships. If anybody, this little logo in the middle, it's a white rondelle, and it's showing a triangle. I'll actually put a picture of the side of the airplane, of the real airplane, as close as you can get to it. You just can't make out what that logo is. I think it's got to do with National Aerobatic Championships. I've actually researched to see what they had used back in the mid-60s, and I still could not find anything that resembled that. So if anybody actually knows what that is, or can send me a link to it, excellent, man, go for it. So here's her actual end numbers, and you can see on the side of the plane it was actually had to be called experimental, and that was because it was clipped. As soon as they clipped the wings on the Cub, it was no longer recognized by the FAA as a Taylorcraft, so it became an experimental airplane. Up front, on the actual side of the cowling, you can see that there's actually exhaust stacks coming out. There's two on this side, two on the other side. Those were actually installed when they changed from the C90 engine up to a 180 horsepower Continental. So they had to make reliefs up on the top of the cowling. That's why there's two of them really close up to here. And then they actually punched out the sides. Now these were actually probably about 2/3 the diameter of the ones that Charlie had put on the cowling when he put the plane together. So my job is to actually try to find, and I'm sure I could find more copper tubing that's actually closer to the size it needs to be. And then I'll actually set up a bracket inside the cowling, so that these holes, when it comes through, you'll actually show that it's coming out of the cowling, just to give it a little bit better 3D effect going in. Now here is the door, which I've never opened, so let's see. Oh, it does work. Excellent. Let me get this farther back. So I do have to work on the other side because the actual window actually flaps up on the other side, and the window is actually no longer in the aircraft. I do have it, but it actually broke from the hinges. And I apologize for the angle of the airplane, because for me to do video right now, as you can see, I can't rest it on the tail, so I've got to build a little perch or put something underneath it to get it level when I'm working on it. But this is just for a quick little overview before I start taking things apart. Now up front, let me get it back in. I'll show you the motor. The motor is actually a Sachs 4.2. It's a motor that's was actually originally, from what I understand, made. It's actually running chainsaws, and it's if nothing else, it's good German quality. And the motor itself, even though it has been run, it looks like there's very, very little wear on the piston. There's no scratching on the side of the cylinder walls, so that looks good. I'm going to find out what kind of parts might still be available for it. I'd at least like to find a gasket set so I can actually just do a teardown just to go in to check the bearings and everything else. I'll get a carb kit to rebuild the carb, and I want to find out, and this is going to be the tough part, I want to see if I could put a 90-degree rotation on here for the carb so I can get rid of the bell crank, because the bell crank is it could be put together a little bit better than that. So that's something I'll work on that side of it. Now, out of all the friends I've got, and I've got more than 2 or 3, I actually put them through the test to find out who knew what motor this was. We had a lot of guesses, and only one person got it right, and I'd like to say his name because he seems to be the guy that knows all that most people don't want to know. But anyway, his name is Larry DeRubo. He was the actual one that knew that it was a Sachs 4.2 as soon as he saw it. So, you know, big thumbs up to Larry. And I'm hoping it's going to make some good power. It should be more than enough for what the plane's going to need. I'll get a weight on the plane, but it should be less than 30 pounds on the plane. The prop that came with the plane was probably about a 20 by 8 prop, and with this motor it should be on the low end side, probably a 2210 or a 2212. And I know that there's been guys that actually spun 23 and 24/8 on it. So I'll at least be getting a little bit bigger prop just to make better use of the horsepower in the motor. So let me grab the screwdriver and start taking some stuff apart, and I'll bring you back from time to time just to see what what kind of trouble I'm getting myself into. Alright, just a quick little heads up. It's probably about 7 o'clock p.m. and it's almost time for me to just pack it in for the night. I did find a couple problems on the little teardown. I'll show you what I found so far. It's interesting stuff. Alright, I actually, on the elevator, the actual elevator itself was actually broken. Let me see if I can get this into a position where I can tentatively show you what happened. We do have one good end all the way to there. Sorry about the mess on the table. Comes all the way across, and we're missing something on this end. So it looks what happened was where the actual hinge point was where it broke, and then that just transferred to the back side of it. It should be fixable in the condition that it's in. What I will probably do is come on in with a piece of, looks like might be 3/8 or 7/16 rod. Just throw in a scarf joint, do a reinforcement with some carbon fiber, and then run that over into here to the end of this one, and then just go ahead and just replace that the actual hinge point. The back side, no big deal. I'll come in, I'll triangulate a little piece here and then a little piece over here, and that should stiffen that up. I'm going to go ahead and the plane might have been built back in the late 70s, early 80s. So we've got a collection of everything from pretty much epoxy, white glue, and if you look right down there, that little orange stuff right there, that's oh geez, I'll come back to that one. I know what it is, I just can't remember what it is. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and just re-epoxy. I use some reinforced 30-minute epoxy down inside here. I'll go ahead and then just roughen this up a little bit, and that should stiffen everything up. Now the big problem that I found so far, when I was measuring to try to find datum points on it, I found out that the actual fuselage was had a banana shape to it, and let's see if we can see it from the front. It's actually got a little bit of a twist into it as well. Tilt it up. Okay, it might be hard to see. If from this angle, from the top to the bottom. I don't know if you can see it from that angle. There's actually a slight rotation in the fuselage. I think that all came from the fact that this plane actually was crashed apparently at one point in time, and the fix was not a very good fix. So you can see right here by this, we got about a 1/4 inch gap where that was never actually properly reattached. This section up in here, as you can see, it's still, let's see if I can get it to move a little bit. It is loose. So what I'll do is I'll come in, I'll scarf in a new joint somewhere up here along a glued surface, so that way we've got extra glue points instead of just in this little area here. And then I'll go ahead and then I'll run that down into here. This was a piece that was originally run all the way down, all the way to the back. So what I'll probably do is I do have some, right here, I actually do have some good Sitka spruce. I got about, I don't know, it's about a 5.5 foot piece. So what I'll do is I'll actually just rip some, almost looks like a 1/4 square piece. I'll measure it, but almost looks like 1/4 square. I'll rip a new piece, glue it in here, run it all the way down, and have it butt up at the bottom here where it should be. And I've got to do the same thing down here, because you can see it's just a piece of pine that's thrown in there that's way too thick, and there's no bend to it. Where the other side of the fuselage, way over here, it actually starts to flex right there, and this piece has no flex until it gets right here. That's what's causing the banana effect. When you look at it, it curves over from the side. So I'll go ahead and I will, when the fuse is completely stripped, it's getting close, I've got the other side to do, and I'll take the wheels off. When the fuse is completely stripped, I'll clean off the whole bench and actually go ahead and set it up so that I can actually put down a piece of cardboard and go ahead and actually set it up so I can get a better datum point somewhere inside the fuse or up in the front. I'll measure to the back down here at the back of the landing gear, or to a point in here, and then go ahead and set everything up, block it, and then run it back to where the tail of this should be, and then I'll go ahead and slide it over. It's going to have to come towards me about at least a 1/4 inch, and that's because of what happened when the fuselage was broken. It actually sprung, because the wood on the other side was sprung in. It actually sprung out in that direction. So when Charlie came back in and fixed the broken part, it was already sprung. He didn't bring it back towards this side. So that's the problem, and I think that's where the twist came in the back of the fuselage. I've had to fix these problems before on other planes, so it's not a difficult problem. It just takes a little bit of time. So it's the plane itself is still in really good condition for what it is. I was hoping it was going to be, you know, maybe about a 1 month project, but we're probably looking at closer to 2 months, which is fine because it's too darn cold outside, and I won't be flying until probably end of March, early April anyway. So I got a good 6 months to work on all this stuff. So that's about the way things went for today. I gotta figure out what I want to do with this. I know that this, you can see from the actual fracture. Let's see right down in here. So this was actually part of the incident, but it's a non-structural piece anyway. So that all I got to do is I'm just going to go ahead, go inside, probably just refill it and sand it down, because that's not going to affect the aircraft at all. So, but everything else is, I mean, it's not too bad. It just needs a little bit of TLC. So once it's all done, it'll be a good rock solid plane again, and hopefully many years of good flights. So anyway, I will get another video set up for I probably won't be doing, I'll probably be doing some work during the week, and I'll just go ahead and to try to do like a weekly compilation, see if I can get something sent out. I'll shoot for like every Friday or every Saturday morning, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, alright, if you happen to like the video, go ahead and put give me a thumbs up, and just let me know any questions. Go ahead and ask. I'll be more than happy to answer. And if I don't have the answer, I pretty much know somebody that does, so I can get the info to you. So anyway,